This video is continuing linear review. We're going to be writing a linear function in slope-intercept form. So if you remember, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. In order to write it in slope-intercept form, we must find our slope, that m value, and we also must find our y-intercept, that b value. We need to determine the sign of that y-intercept as well. So we have three examples. This first example, we're given two coordinates. Second example, we're given a table. And the third example, we're given a graph. So in this first example, with two coordinates, we don't have either the slope or the y-intercept. The y-intercept would be a 0, a number, so we don't have that, and we also are not told what the slope is. So we need to determine the slope. Slope goes back to that equation of m equals y minus y over x minus x, and we have x's and y's. We have an x and a y here, and an x and a y here. So to find our slope, we have m equals. Our first y, it really doesn't matter which y you start with, as long as you are consistent by starting with the x from that same coordinate. So our first y, if I go with negative 13, I need to subtract that 5. Then I'm going to divide by the x's. So if I started with a negative 13, I have to start with the x of negative 2. So I have negative 2 minus that other x is 4. Negative 13 minus 5 is negative 18 over negative 2 minus 4 is negative 6. If we simplify that, negative 18 over negative 6 is a positive 3. We now have our slope. Now that we have our slope, we want to find our y-intercept. Again, we are not given the y-intercept, so we have to use our slope to help us find it. We have the equation y equals mx plus b. The b is what we need. Y equals mx plus b. If the b is the only thing we need, that means we need a number for all of the y, the m, and the x. We just found our m, and we have two sets of x's and y's. So we can actually just pick one of these to plug in for the x and y. I'm going to use the 4 and the 5 because these are positive values. So my y value, I'm going to plug in 5 equals. I'm just plugging it into this equation. The m that we just found is 3. Then I'm going to plug in the 4 for the x. So I'm going to multiply that because it's m times x. That's 4. But then we have plus b. We don't know what the b is, so I'm going to keep that as plus b. So now we're going to simplify. This stays as 5 equals 3 times 4 is 12 plus b. To solve for b, we're going to subtract the 12 over, so 5 minus 12 is negative 7, will equal to our b value. Once we have our m and our b, we can write our final equation, the equation in slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form is y equals m x plus b, and our b is negative 7, so it's really just minus 7. All we did was plug in the m for the 3 for the m and the negative 7 for the b. This is slope-intercept form from two coordinates. On the next example, we have 5 coordinates. So we can do the same thing as we did here and use 2 of the coordinates to find our slope. So on here, let's go with m equals. It does not matter which 2 coordinates you use. You can use just the first 2 if you'd like. So our first y value is that negative 4 minus that next y value is that negative 5. So I'm going to put parentheses around that negative 5 divided by, I put parentheses around that because it was a minus and then a negative. Since I used the negative 4 first, I have to use the negative 2 on my x's. So negative 2 minus the next x would be that 0. So we have negative 4 minus negative 5. That really turns into negative 4 plus 5, which is a positive 1, over negative 2 minus 0 is a negative 2. So we would write our slope as just negative 1/2. We have our slope. Now we want to find our y-intercept. We have more than 2 coordinates this time. We want to look to see if we have the x value of 0. If you have the x value of 0, you automatically have your y-intercept. We do. This is our y-intercept. So I can put y-intercept is actually at 0, -5. What that means is our b is equal to -5. Once we have both of these, we can write out our equation. So slope-intercept form is y equals m, which is at -1/2, x plus b. Our b is -5. We do not have to put plus a -5 because plus a negative is just minus. So our equation is y equals -1/2 x minus 5. On this last example, we're given the graph. Therefore, it's a little bit easier to find your slope because you can just do rise over run from 2 coordinates. And if your graph is crossing the y-axis, you automatically have your y-intercept. So let's look for our slope. Remember, slope is rise over run, so I can go from any 2 coordinates. So if I start at this one, and I want to go to this coordinate here, I have to go down 2, but then right 3. So this would be down 2 and then right 3. So our slope of rise is -2 and our run is +3. So our slope is -2 over 3. On this graph, we have where it crosses the y-axis at 0, 5. So our y-intercept is at 0, 5. That tells us that our b value is equal to a +5. Since we have both the m and the b, our equation of y equals m, -2 over 3, x plus b. So our b is +5, so we'll put plus that 5. This is the equation of our line on our graph. So you have 3 representations. You have it from 2 coordinates, you have it from a table, and you have it from a graph.